Hi, I'm Justin Webster, and welcome to the reasonably thorough demonstration for Slapper 1.0. Slapper is a multi-tap surround delay with a stunningly intuitive GUI, fantastic console integration, and some freakish sound design potential. It has 8 taps, each of which has its own delay time, 0 to 2500 milliseconds, its own level on the vertical axis, feedback amount, and damping amount, which is represented by the colour saturation. This is no damping, maximum damping. Each tap also has independent pan controls, so you can arrange them as a mono, stereo, 7.1 or anything in between. So it's really 8 completely independent delay units in one box, which lets you build some incredibly complex or subtly varying spaces with very little effort. It also features high and low pass filters, as well as a mix percentage and an output trim. We think this is a super intuitive way to present time and space in a delay plugin, and we've put a lot of effort into making sure that the plugin really looks the way it sounds. The Slapper can take all common formats as input or output, but under the hood it actually monos up the input signal on the way into the plugin. So the 8 separate taps are taken off this mono input source. They are each then fed back into themselves, filtered and panned as you've chosen. By default, the 8 taps are laid out in a 7.1 arrangement, but they'll automatically downmix to your output format if required. Okay, let's check it out. So in all of these examples, you're first going to hear the dry signal, which is feeding the Slapper and returning to our mix in a classic send-return situation. So to use Slapper, you simply grab one of these pucks, enable it, and set the delay time, and the level, and pan position if required. Slapper has a great set of carefully chosen keyboard modifiers to help you quickly control the taps, and I'm going to show you some of those now. The command double click enables the tap. Control drag changes the feedback amount. Command drag changes the damping amount. Option double click resets both here in the delay field and here in the pan field. And right click on any tap to solo. The enable buttons can set individual channels on and off, or can set all taps on or off by holding the option key. And the main output filters can be shifted on the sliders or up here in the delay field by grabbing the small handles and dragging. It also allows you to control multiple taps at once using option drag for all taps, shift to multi-select, and then option shift drag for moving the selected taps only. And these modifiers apply to any parameter. So for example, you could change the feedback amount on all taps by using control and then holding the option modifier. Or by shift clicking your surround taps, you can then change their level together by option shift dragging them up and down. And of course the spanner module responds pretty much just like your regular spanner interface, allowing toe, individual moves, and all linked moves. Okay, let's listen to some presets so you can get a feel for how it sounds and looks. For the sake of efficiency, I'm going to explain some technical details through the effect whilst browsing the preset library. The preset library is organised by contributor and by type. You'll find most presets exist in several folders, the aim being to make it quick and easy to locate something appropriate. Here's a starting point! It's worth noting here that there are 2 fundamentally different ways to filter the delays: damping and the main output filters. So there's a damping control for each tap, and it's made up of a steep high frequency curve and a shallower low frequency curve. The more damping you apply, the deeper the cut. Each time the signal feeds back into the delay, it gets another pass through the damping filters, becoming more and more heavily bandpassed. You can use the main output filters to shave off top and bottom end, producing some pretty extreme results. Or you can use a lot of damping and a lot more feedback, but leave the main filters out. So there's a huge amount of variation that can be found just by messing around with the balance between those two filter types. Now, you may have spotted these two checkboxes down here. These are two special modes which need some explaining. In tape mode, the delay lines will work just like a tape machine whenever the delay time changes. So as you make the delay time longer, anything already in the delay will become varispeeded downwards. As you make the delay time shorter, the pitch increases. And because these taps are totally independent, you can varispeed one tap but not the rest, or pitch all 8 in real time. Or even select just your surrounds and pitch dive on those. Now, tape mode's pretty CPU intensive, so if you're doing this on a lot of instances, on all 8 taps, or at the longest end of the delay range, you may find yourself maxing out the CPU. We don't think this is going to happen very often, but in case it does, we've offered the automatable tape mode parameter, which you can use to temporarily bypass it if needed. Sync mode allows your tempo-based delays to follow the host tempo as it changes. In order to do this, Slapper has a separate set of delay parameters specifically for tempo-based delay times. The range of this parameter is 0 to 10 beats, which you can see right away when you switch into sync mode. You'll also notice the display changes in several ways, both for practical reasons and to alert you about which mode you're currently in. Sync mode delay time can be any arbitrary number of beats, for example 3.427 beats. But much of the time we guess you'll want to set the delay times to exact measures. So we've created this tempo grid system, which you can use just as a visual reference or for snapping your delay times to exact measures. You can change the note lengths displayed, including dotted and triplet, and even a set of prime number grids is available to keep things sounding random. Once you've got your rhythmic delay set, you can also switch off snapping and shift the whole pattern slightly ahead of the beat. You can make some really unique and interesting rhythmic patterns using all 8 taps without any feedback. And then shift that whole pattern ahead or behind by a fixed amount. Alternatively, you can set up a single tap feeding back on itself and shift that ahead or behind the beat, creating a feedback which drifts further and further out of the groove. It's also worth noting that because you have total freedom to place the 8 taps anywhere you like, you can set up some really bizarre rhythmic slap patterns. For example, using 16th notes but just a few randomly selected pairs. Or a rising pattern of 16th notes into the next bar. The same thing using triplets. The delay lines themselves have a maximum length which varies depending on which mode you're in. So for example, in time-based mode, the maximum delay time is 2.5 seconds. In tempo sync mode, the delay is a range of 0 to 10 beats. So the absolute available delay depends on which tempo you happen to be running. If you slow the tempo down far enough, you'll eventually see the red out of bounds area appear, and this is the part of the visible timeline which is longer than the maximum available delay line. Okay, so now you've got a good idea of how to create interesting sounding spaces using the Slapper GUI, but I want to show you how simple it is to do the same thing using a hardware controller. So we've put a lot of time and effort into creating layouts for surfaces such as the Artist Mix here, and we really think there are some great advantages in designing a space using a hardware controller. So let's try it. So the first thing we're going to do is enable one of the taps. The Artist Mix layout has the enable buttons for all 8 taps on these on knobs. And you'll find these on every page of the layout. So let's enable tap 1 and take a look at the first page of the layout. You'll see that on these 8 knobs we have the 6 parameters of tap 1 plus the 2 main output filters. And again, You'll find those on every page. So we turn up the level of tap 1. We set the delay time. Give it some feedback. Damp it off a bit. And maybe now we need a bit more feedback. Good. Now let's decide where we want it panned, although I think I'm pretty happy with it on the left. Okay, now let's enable tap 2 and move to page 2 to set that one up. Let's make it a little bit quieter than tap 1 and a bit longer. Maybe a little less feedback and not so much damping. And it's pan center right now, so I'm going to push it to the right to balance up the image. Okay, it still sounds a bit right heavy to me, so I'm going to pull back the level on that one a touch. Now that's a pretty simple example, of course, but you can see how you tend to make very deliberate decisions about what you want to hear in your delay. And I find I tend to get some really good results working like this. Now other consoles have different layouts, of course. For example, the D control and the S6 have modes which spread all 8 taps across the width of the console, with each tap occupying a single strip. So that was Slapper. You should now be armed with all the information necessary to build beautiful musical cinematic environments. We'd love to hear from you, so please get in touch if you have any thoughts at all on the plugin. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next exciting Cargo Cult release.